Next, we're going to turn to facilities and strategic planning. And we're very lucky in the sense that I think we've all seen that when very famous facilities, well-known, well-regarded places undertake important projects, it really leads to education and information and inspiration in the neighborhoods and regions where those facilities are. And there aren't many courses in California better known and more loved and more appreciated and facing more issues with water than Pasatiempo. So we're very lucky to have Justin Mannon to come and tell us all about a project he undertook. He's got another one coming, but this is the one that pertains to our topic today. So please welcome Justin. Thank you.
Thank you. It's great to be here today. See a lot of familiar faces and some new faces out there. My goal today is really to tell you the story of Pasatiempo. I'm not going to give you a bunch of goals and objectives or try to tell you what to do at your own facility. That'd be very arrogant of myself. All of our facilities are very unique, and we all have to manage to hundreds of different variables that only we can manage to. And developing a drought contingency plan and doing long-term planning in regards to water is no different. Your geographic region, your water sources, your restrictions, your turf type, the resources you have available, your expectations, they're all going to drive how you plan for the current drought restrictions that we're under and most likely what the future restrictions are going to be. At Pasatiempo, we have this kind of motto that we started talking about when I first came in 2013, and it was, we needed to secure a water portfolio. And that's the way I think we need to look at it. When I got to Pasatiempo in 2013, we were 100% reliant on potable water. The city of Santa Cruz pressurized our irrigation system. We had no storage, we had no pump station. And on my first day of work, it was very clear to me, yeah, we want you to take care of the golf course and maintain it and do all that stuff, but your number one goal here is to secure alternative water sources. And from that day forward, every single day for 4 years, I worked on what I'll come to talk about today, a recycled water project. We ended up self-funding a $9 million tertiary treatment plant that we built at Pasatiempo that we operate ourselves. I have water treatment operators now on our golf course maintenance staff, and I can tell you after operating for 4 years, it's been extremely successful. "13 months after I took over as golf course superintendent at Pasatiempo, I was notified by the city of Santa Cruz that we were going to get cut 50%. Now, what does 50% cut mean? It can mean a lot of different things for a lot of different people, but for Pasatiempo, what it meant was that they were using the landscape coefficient method. So they take your irrigated acres, daily ET, a turf variable of 0.7, and then they cut that by 50%. For those of you that know what I just said, it's a lot of water. And we're growing cool season grass. Yeah, in the first year of taking a new position, I had to manage through conditions like this and conditions like this. All that common Bermuda I hated was my best friend during all this time, I can tell you that. I love common Bermuda now. I encourage it. But really, where do you start? How do you start developing a plan for your facility to make sure that you're gonna exist, to make sure that you have water security moving forward? And Darren did such a great job in his presentation. The one thing that I think is very important is, where does your water come from? He did a really good job of explaining that sometimes it's easy to know where your water comes from, and sometimes it can be very complicated. But obviously recognizing who your provider is. And when I say where your water comes from, I'm not talking about, well, it comes from the meter on the 10th tee, and this is our water provider. Like, truly, where do those drops of water come from? I think it's extremely important to know, because when you're put under that situation, you are going to be bombarded with questions from members, from golfers, from your own peers, from your community. And what I think the first part of developing a plan is you need to become the most knowledgeable person in the room. You need to do your homework. Every single water provider is going to have a shortage contingency plan or some form of a shortage contingency plan. Become very, very familiar with that document. And don't just become familiar with the section that is golf. Don't go in the table of contents. It's going to be probably a very long document. I think it's really important that you are made aware of what the shortages are for everyone within your community. The homes that surround your golf course, what other businesses are going through, commercial, other large irrigators. It's just going to put you in a better position because, like I said, when you get cut a significant amount of water, there's going to be a lot of meetings, there's going to be a lot of questions, there's going to be a lot of news and media talking about it. And if you don't know where your water is coming from and you don't know what's going on within your community at a real in-depth level, you're going to have a hard time navigating through this very difficult time. The second thing I would do from past experience is to say to know your irrigation system. Now, every golf course superintendent in this room is going to say, I know my irrigation system. I irrigate in the Southwest. I believe it's probably one of the most important aspects of being a golf course superintendent in the Southwest is being a proficient irrigator. But really what I'm saying is know your system as far as being able to track exactly how much water you're putting out, okay? It doesn't rain here anymore. I mean, we make it rain every single night. So do you know exactly how much water you're putting on the golf course? Now, for some of us, we have updated pump stations and we can easily gather data, but for others, it can be actually more difficult and more difficult than you think, because when you have to start tracking every single gallon of water, you need to know exactly what you're putting out. You will run a projected flow. How close is that projected flow that you're putting out every day on the golf course to your actual usage? And you need to develop a plan that you can accurately track that. Now, one thing that you can do that can assist with that is doing an irrigation audit. Now I see Mike Huck is here, so I'm not going to get in depth about irrigation audit. Oh, that's right, he's retired. He announced it yesterday. What I'm saying is getting to a point to where your projected flows are less than 5% of what you're actually putting on the golf course is going to put you in a better position, because are you trying to true up at the end of a month? Are you trying to true up at the end of the year? What's your baseline? How much water do you have available? When we went through those conditions I showed you in 2014 and 2015, we were being fined $100 per unit. $100 per 749 gallons. You can bet we never went over a drop of water, but we ran it as tight as we possibly could. So know your irrigation system, develop a process where you can easily track your water and exactly how much water you're putting out. And it's not just the nightly irrigation, you have to also understand you have to develop a process so that you can know what supplemental water you may be putting out during the day. So this graph right here, when I say we tracked our water at Pasatiempo, the green is what we should have been allocated that summer. The red was our drought allotment, and the blue line is what we used. And we never went over. We never paid one fine that entire summer. And I can tell you it was very complicated for us. We had 3 inlets from the city of Santa Cruz. Guess what? They were all measuring in different units. And it was like, we tracked it every day. I put up a chart with all the different ETs, so starting at like 0.2 all the way up to 0.35 ET. I had the landscape coefficient in an Excel. We'd type in the 24-hour ET. We'd cut 50% off of it. We would irrigate certain parts of the golf course at 100%, and then it would tell you exactly how many gallons you had to irrigate that night. And so for different facilities, like I said, we all have to manage different variables. This may be something very easy for you, but for others, it can be something that you really have to set up a plan. And this is really all leading towards putting together a drought contingency plan that is unique to your own facility. Now, I put on here form a committee. Superintendents, we love committees, right? We're on so many committees. They meet always between 4 and 6 p.m. when golf is done, so we can't be with our families, and they drink beers, and we end up getting in trouble when we get home. But I'm not saying you need to form a committee, but I'm saying that when you put together a drought contingency plan, don't do it by yourself. As a golf course superintendent, do not take this on alone. Make sure that the stakeholders within your facility are all part of putting together a drought contingency plan. You're going to have to do the footwork, you're going to have to gather the data, you're going to have to present a ton of material, but at the end of the day, whether it's the golf course superintendent, the head golf professional, the general manager, the green committee chairman, the president of the club, the owner, whoever it might be, it doesn't matter. Make a committee, make it a group decision, because no matter what area you reduce or you decide to not reduce, it's not going to be the right area for a certain percentage of golfers, and it's going to be much easier when you do this together. So, first thing is form your committee, get the stakeholders involved, recognize what your local drought stages are, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, what the reductions are within those stages. You develop basically a plan to reduce water for each of those stages. And then just as important as putting that plan together is having a communication plan, okay? When you're under restrictions like I showed you before, how are you communicating to your customers what the condition of the golf course is? When they make a tee time online and the golf course looks like that, do they know? Are you being 100% transparent with it? When they come into the pro shop, there needs to be something like a script, bullet points, a unified message by everybody from within your club about what you're going through, about why you're going through this, and about the current condition of your golf course. I can tell you that being transparent is going to be much better for your facility, in my opinion, than not being 100% transparent, having someone show up to your facility, not being happy, maybe playing that day, and then maybe never playing again. You want those customers to return. I originally had like a whole P&L aspect to this presentation that's going to be extremely variable for everybody. That's a complete dart throw when you start talking about revenue. But part of this plan is going to have to involve, if you get to conditions like this, are you going to reduce green fees? Are you going to put together some type of incentive program? Are you going to reduce dues for your members at a club? Don't ever reduce dues for your members at a private club. What we did at Pasatiempo, it was different. You know, we're a semi-private club, so we have 400 private members, but we're also open to the public. Well, at that time, we were probably charging a public player in 2014 with a card $295 to play Pasatiempo if you walked in off the street. We did not reduce any green fees that year. You paid full rack rate if you wanted to come play. There are two reasons for that. Number one, we didn't want to encourage the course to get flooded with play, which under those restrictions would have even damaged the golf course more for our members and would have damaged it more quickly. You know, those pictures I showed you were the end of August, beginning of September. There was a very slow transition to get to that point. The first couple of months, it's British Open. I mean, you got, 70-year-old members hitting it in fairway bunkers off the tee that they haven't hit it in 25 years. It was a lot of fun for a while, but eventually it gets to a point where it's like, okay, this isn't fun anymore. We've killed a lot of grass. We really need to move forward. But the communication plan, thinking about how you're going to approach your revenue streams, what you're going to do with dues, what you're going to do with green fees is something that you really need to be aware of and something that you should make as part of this drought contingency plan. It's not just about restricting water usage. Don't worry about the numbers here, but when developing the different stages of drought, I think it's extremely helpful. Just don't look at the acreage as much. I think it can give you some bad data. I like to look at your programs, because the programs that you irrigate the golf course to are very unique to you. You might have 20 programs of, you'll have more, but the main programs that you irrigate the golf course to, go back in your historical usage and see how much water you're actually using in those specific programs. So what I'm trying to say is if you have 100 acres of irrigated turf and 50 of it's fairway, it's probably not 50% of your usage. It's probably going to be a different percentage. You could have warm season fairways, cool season roughs. Obviously, there's going to be a huge difference there. But the way irrigation systems are designed, and depending on the geographic region and the slopes and the exposure, focusing on how much the programs actually use and having that as your template to start looking at how you make reductions, I think you can be a lot more accurate moving forward. Now, there's a lot of different ways to look at reducing water usage. I know golf courses in Northern California that would look at as simply as, I got 2,000 sprinkler heads, I'm gonna get cut 40%. I'm gonna go physically key off 400 heads. I'm gonna go around until I key off 400 heads and we're gonna start from there. And that's totally fine, and it worked for that facility, and that could be your path forward to reducing water usage. But you just have to figure out a plan that works for you in order to make the cuts at the end of the month or the end of the year. As I said, I talked about this. A creative thing we did at Pasatiempo is we did charge full rack rate, but we gave everybody a voucher for 50% off if they came back. So what we said is, we're going to charge you full rate. We might not be what we want to be right now, but hopefully you'll come back to us again and we'll give you 50% off around in the future. And for those of you that do vouchers, return on vouchers and stuff like that are really into it, I would be surprised if 50% of those vouchers were turned in, but it's very dependent on your facility and who your customers are. So long and short-term solutions to water restrictions, to what I believe is the future of California. There's never going to be a time when water is cheaper or more available than today. I truly believe that. If you have a project in the works, whether it's long or short term, start doing it. Get on it, because it's not going to get any easier. It's not going to get any cheaper. As Darren said, they're fighting for water, and in my mind, it's just going to become more aggressive. Technology can be viewed as a long and a short-term solution, and I won't get into all the technology that's available. I'm sure most superintendents in this room are utilizing a ton of technology. Obviously, drones, soil moisture meters, handheld moisture meters. There's a ton of technology out there that can assist us. Just make sure it's data that you can use and that's easy to use, because at times it can absolutely be overwhelming for certain superintendents and certain facilities. Turf conversions, obviously going from cool season to warm season grass, you're going to see some reductions there. Even going to better hybrids if you're already using warm season grass at your facility, turf reductions, and then alternative water sources. So in 2010, Pasatiempo installed a new irrigation system. We reduced 25 acres of irrigated turf at that time. It was fairly controversial when it happened, but it was a little bit easier for Pasatiempo because this was really a restoration of the golf course. We're always trying to be opening day 1929, Alistair McKenzie design. And so bringing these native areas back, taking the irrigation out of these 20 acres was how the golf course was opened in 1929. So it really, we kind of hit a home run with it, where we could significantly reduce our irrigation demand and we could restore the golf course at the same time. We developed a well So as I said before, we were relying on potable water. We drilled a well 1,500 feet deep. We ended up developing it to 750 feet. It produces about 10 to 15% of our annual usage. It's part now of what I call our water portfolio, and it's been very successful for us. This all leads to what I talked about earlier, which was our recycled water project. Of course, we built that in 2016-17 when we had 71 inches of rain. That hole filled up with water a couple of times. I've never seen so many Honda sump pumps lined up together down in a pit in my entire life. But of course, we're building a $9 million tertiary treatment plant to build our water portfolio, and we get 71 inches of rain in like 3.5 months. So it was a lot of fun. So a little bit of history. We're very fortunate. In 1978, the community above us, Scotts Valley, they built their wastewater treatment plant and their outfall line that runs to the Pacific Ocean. A very, very forward-thinking engineer in 1978 stubbed a line onto our property. It tees off of a major intersection, and they actually brought that line onto Pasatiempo's property. I dug up where I thought it was, and I found the meter about 8 feet deep on the corner of the property, and I opened the meter, and it was 0.0000000. But it was really neat to find that meter that had been put there in 1978. So we had the infrastructure to receive the water in place, but what we didn't have is we didn't have a contract to own the rights to the water, and that's what had held it up for so long. Pasatiempo had been in negotiations for over a decade to try to purchase some water from the city of Scotts Valley. Now, Scotts Valley was probably producing upwards of 225 to 250 million gallons of secondary annually that they were dumping into the Pacific Ocean. And they said, well, you're welcome to use as much of it as you want, but we don't want to do a long-term deal because water is a commodity, and we have future plans to do reuse, to inject into aquifers, and it took a long time for us to be able to get a long-term contract, because at the end of the day, we had to make a huge capital investment on our part in order to be able to use the water. So, why do you look at doing these types of projects? You look at it because it's risk avoidance. You look at it because it's a guaranteed supply. And you look at it because it's a fixed cost. And one thing I want to make clear is, if you do a big project like this, a lot of times the ROI is not going to be there. Or if it's there, it's way, way out there. This is about securing water. And I know that's hard sometimes for owners and for committees and finance committees and clubs when they don't see that really, tied up in a bow ROI that they want to see on all these projects. But it's really about sustainability, and it's really about preserving the future of your golf course. I would go into these projects not expecting to have an ROI, and if you have one, then it's kind of bonus. Luckily for Pasatiempo, we do have an ROI. In 2013, we were paying $5.60 a unit. Our current potable water cost for the city of Santa Cruz is $15 a unit. And they just came out with the 5-year plan, which that rate will increase 40%. So our current annual potable water cost, if we were on 100% city water, would be about $1.1 million for 66 acres of irrigated turf. Looking back at the return, we lost about $500,000 in green fees in 2014. This project started out as about a 13-year ROI, but with these new updated 40% increase in potable water, our return on a $9 million recycled water treatment plant, including interest, including OpEx costs, is now less than 10 years. So our water portfolio, we get the secondary from Scotts Valley. We treat it in our on-site tertiary treatment plant, we have a well, we have access to city water from the city of Santa Cruz. We have 3 sources. We have a subterranean 500,000 gallon tank. We can mix and blend these 3 sources as we see fit, depending on what our irrigation needs are. So pre-construction, before we even could get a shovel in the ground, like I said, negotiating the water, it was 2 solid years of us, our attorney, water district, city, their attorneys, 13 iterations of a contract that would last 30 years. We were engaged with city council members, water boards, the mayor, county supervisors, state senators, state assembly members, believe me, meeting with their staff, meeting with them. We got to a point where we were so stalled, we hired 2 political lobbyist groups that went to Governor Brown's office to try to push this project forward. We were not going to be held back. We had been held back for decades. And the pictures you saw in the beginning from that drought, that was driving us forward. We knew we made it through that one. Could we make it through another one? Could we make it through 2 or 3 sustained years in that condition? We had to make sure that we were going to push this project forward. And obviously, like I said, it was a major self-funded infrastructure requiring a long-term deal. 30-year contract. We're guaranteed 175,000 gallons a day of secondary. We treat it to tertiary level on site. We have access to all the excess, which there's typically about 200,000 to 300,000 gallons a day that come down the secondary line from Scotts Valley. Our irrigation demand averages about 330,000 gallons a night. And we paid $1.6 million to the city of Santa Cruz in total for 30 years of secondary water. So you can see where you can start to get a return on that investment. That's what we ended up building. See 500,000 gallon subterranean tank, air gap. Our tertiary plant's the large building on the right. Our pump station is on the left side of the sand bins there. And then, of course, members need a new bathroom anytime you build something, so put a new restroom out there for them. The restroom is what sold it, right? It wasn't the other, as a $500,000 restroom too, believe me. Treatment plant, so we have 2 Amiad AMF 370K filters. I didn't realize this after working on them a little bit this year. There's only 12 of them in the United States. But these filters can filter, according to Tile 22 report and certification, they can do 800 gallons a minute each. We actually only really need 1 of them for our needs, but redundancy is good in the water world. We have 2, and it's a good thing because one of them went down and we couldn't get a part for 6 months. So always good to think about redundancy in the water world. So we get our secondary that comes in. I don't want to get super technical. You know, it's less than 5 NTU turbidity. Those filters filter it to less than 2 NTU turbidity. It looks like a glass of water you could drink when it comes out of those things. We disinfect it with sodium hypochlorite, chlorine. We put it in our tank, and it's certified to be tertiary water. That's me inside the tank before we filled it. Yeah, wastewater treatment operator on our staff. We have grade 2, grade 3. We have a full lab so that we can double check, calibrate, do all those things that everyone in the water world knows about. Design team, DNN Tanks is a Southern California company, design and engineering company that designed our tank, and all the local engineers and engineering and construction consultants we used. And Mike Huck, who was a huge help during that project, thank you, Mike, helped us navigate through a lot of the regulatory issues that we were facing with planning and having procedures in place. Build relationships. Darren talked about it a lot. He's completely right. Know where your water comes from, know who's writing the plans, develop a relationship with them. If you're doing major projects, find champions of your project within your club, within your golf community that will help you push it forward. That's Congressman Panetta. I'm lucky enough to be a grassroots ambassador for the GCSAA, so I met with Panetta. He's an easy sell. He's got 5 top 100 golf clubs in his district and hosts the US Open every 7 years. And he worked on a golf course maintenance crew in Monterey every summer when he came back from college. So I didn't have a lot to sell to him when I met with him. He's definitely a champion of golf, but you need to find those champions out there. They're going to help you with your projects. And like I said, be the most knowledgeable person in the room. So are we done? We've done everything possible at Pasatiempo to reduce our water usage through all the projects that we've done and the elimination of irrigated turf. No. We have a half acre of Bermuda in one of our fairways right now. We're looking at converting to warm season turf. We will not stop. Even though we have 3 sources of water, nothing's ever 100% guaranteed, and we're going to continue to do what we can to reduce our water footprint. Thank you very much.
Does anyone have questions for Justin? I know, please.
Just one quick one, Justin. How comfortable are you with the reclaimed water and the fact that it will remain yours and not go from quote now? Has that been discussed or thought about?
I may not understand your question. How comfortable am I that...
How comfortable are you that you're going to be able to maintain that tertiary water system, not from a management standpoint, but is there any thoughts of the fact that as water becomes more scarce, that you might lose that because they're going to be able to turn that?
Sure. So, yeah, absolutely. And we've seen actually a reduction in our influent water coming into our treatment plant. Most of that has to do with COVID. Simply, businesses that did not return, our influent is lower than when we originally turned on the treatment plant. So, that's kind of a side issue with COVID that we didn't expect. But we have a 30-year contract. The contract is set up to where it ends right after I retire and I'll be a consultant. So I'm hoping no, but we've already discussed, even now, we're only 5 years into the contract. We have 25 years left. We've actually already had internal discussions about trying to already start working on an extension, because these types of contracts aren't going to happen in 1 year or 2 years. There's going to be years and years of negotiating and trying to make sure that we can secure an extension. So it's a worry, but not for the next couple of decades.
Justin, I have one. Besides the restroom, what was really the key to selling things to the members? What got through to people? Was it the golf course hitting the point it reached?
Yeah, we've all been through votes. That $9 million project where we took on $7 million of debt, it passed by 92% within our club. I mean, I joke, you couldn't build a standalone restroom with a 92% approval rating on a golf course. You couldn't build anything. The drought is what pushed it. It was the conditions. It was the idea that if we get put in this situation for more than a season or consecutive seasons, it could eventually spell the end of Pasatiempo, of a golden age, one of the greatest designs in golf. It could be the end of it. And so that's what really pushed it forward.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks. Anyone else? All right. Well, Justin's going to be
Thank you.
hanging around. So thank you very much. Awesome.